Tyler Callahan here, copywriter and marketing consultant. Welcome to the actual marketing show where I talk to business leaders about their marketing strategies and what actually works for them. Entrepreneurs are bombarded daily with the latest marketing tactics, and when they try one out, they are often met with failure. So I thought, why not go to the source? Why not talk to actual hardworking business leaders in the trenches and battling it out daily to find out what works for them and what doesn't? Let's get to it. Today I'm having James and Ian on the show from the Water and Ice Co. Water company in a town local to me. James was in the oil and gas industry and helped grow a company from 40 to 400 employees. And Ian is in the finance industry and one of the owners and business partners of Water and Ice Co. So how are you guys today?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, talking to you guys. So I'm glad to have you on the show, and thanks for coming on.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thanks for having us on. Doing well as well.
Glad you came on the show here. And the first thing I like to start with is an overview of who you are and what you do. Can you share that with us? I don't know if you guys decide who's going to go first or not, but
James, why don't you go? You go first.
Okay. So, Tyler, I'm the president of Water and Ice Co., located down in Leduc, and basically I look after all the operations and delivery side of the business, which is quite a bit of fun. We have quite a bit of reach all through the greater Leduc and Edmonton metropolitan area, and it feels like some days we service pretty much all of Alberta. So, definitely a good thing to be going into work every day and have that kind of reach.
Yeah, I think Ian, for you guys listening to the show, Ian and I are actually friends. So we've talked a bit before about your business. You guys sometimes go all the way down to Calgary, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's correct.
That's quite, Alberta's a big province. So that's quite the drive.
Yeah, getting a lot of petro points and everything else for sure.
Just for me, I guess my involvement in the company is more on the financial end. As you mentioned, I have a finance background, so I'm actually still in the corporate world, but also kind of part-time dealing with the financial end of the business.
Yeah, it's great to have you kind of both together on the show as kind of a duo. Get both sides of how your business works, and so that's a unique experience for the listeners.
Yeah, actually, that's something we always said. We have very diverse backgrounds, so it's actually really good meld with the combination operations, human resources. Actually, you'll hear more about that, and myself, finance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's move on to our next question here. So yeah, it sounds like you guys are going to have some great insights for listeners of the actual marketing show. I guess we'll kind of move on to what was your why? You know, why did you want to get into this business? Of selling ice and water to businesses and residential consumers. I know that's, you guys kind of service both sides. What was the reason? You know, they say a lot of business owners have the why they started something.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I'll start us off there. For myself, I've always been very entrepreneurial. So actually, going through university, growing up in Ontario, went to university there. I actually ran a small business to help put myself through school. And, from there, I also went to, when I moved to Toronto, I ran a small financial advising practice there, then went into the corporate world, but always had something on the go on the side. So actually, there's a restaurant franchise called The Chopped Leaf. I had a small ownership in that, and that was a fun thing to do on the side. This one is a bigger, more serious venture, but it is still something on the side for me that that I can make my own, get what I want out of it, right? And the keys there is it's all about creating jobs and building something. So I really like I'm an engineer at heart, I think, but I just apply that to entrepreneurship, and I really enjoy being part of the growth of something.
So I guess I'll segue into my part of this. For me, I grew up with a family business. My father ran a custom steel fabrication company. And so I was always kind of around that very entrepreneurial, seeing him go out, meet with customers, and have those interactions. So I was very comfortable with that from a young age. And then as I progressed into my own career post school, bounced around a couple of different places as you tend to do in your early 20s, and then had the good fortune of working for a smaller company in the oil and gas sector, and kind of went on this wonderful journey over the course of a decade of seeing them bring in new people, refine processes, really develop an identity and a culture. And, it turned into something that was quite successful. So we saw the opportunity to purchase an established company, that was doing a good amount of work, but was on the smaller side. Really was interested in the opportunity to go through that growth again. It was one of the most interesting things I ever got to do, and having that ability to have even more influence, to work with, an excellent business partner as Ian is, and kind of take everything that we see and get people engaged and get them on board. And even in the last year and a half, the amount of results and good things that have happened has really vindicated that decision.
I didn't even pay him to say that.
That's great. It seems like you kind of just have a love for business, and that's, like you get some business owners who start business because they love the topic, I guess, or the actual, I guess the environment or the culture around a certain thing. And so they start a business around it, and it's like maybe they're not so much in the business, but they like what they're doing. And then there's some people that just love business, right? And they just want to grow something. And there's nothing wrong with either side, but I think people that really love business in general kind of they have a little bit of an advantage, right? Because they know how to grow something a bit faster, I guess, or a bit more power. It's almost like it's for people that are maybe so much more in love with the culture of their business. They have to put in a bit of extra effort to actually focus on business, right?
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah, and just to add to that a little bit, you see a lot who maybe have that money motivation, and they think that having their own business is the way to accomplish that. I've seen a lot of companies or entrepreneurs fail if that's kind of really what it's all about for them. Whereas I think there's a lot more to it than just that, right?
Oh yeah, of course. You have to like what you're doing, right? I mean, regardless, like if it's growing a business and that's what you love to do, that's still something you love to do, right? If you're just picking something to make money and then that's not happening, that you're going to lose your motivation.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, that's just it. I think you have to have the passion for the product. You have to have a passion for the service, and the people that you bring in and sort of that culture that you develop really is kind of nested around that idea as well. So it's something you look at it, you always kind of come into it from the outside and go, this seems interesting. I know a little bit about this. I see some of my skill set fitting into this new opportunity. And then you get into it and you learn the industry more and more, and you meet the clients and the customers and the people that you kind of work around. And for me, that brings even more motivation every day that passes. Right.
Okay. So yeah, that sounds great. Let's move on to the next part of the show here. And this is one that's kind of exciting to talk about is, what is your greatest business achievement? I introduced you as achieving you grew from a company from 40 to 400, and you kind of wanted to expound on that. So James, why don't we go a little deeper into that?
Sure. So yeah, it was quite the interesting story. So back in 2005, I started working for a oil and gas company called Regent Energy Group, located in Nisku. And, it was a well-established company with a unique product. They developed a sand control device, slotted liner for horizontal completions and flow control. and things of that nature. And when I first kind of went in there, it was very much the sort of shop that I remember my dad having, a good amount of employees, some interesting equipment, and sort of like a rough idea, sort of a tribal knowledge of how to go about things. And through the next couple of years, the company started seeing opportunities to work overseas. And for myself, one of my greatest achievements, or the thing that I'm most proud of, is I was very fortunate to work with a group of people that established our first manufacturing facility outside of Canada. So I had the opportunity where I was traveling out to the Middle East, and eventually ended up moving there, partially expatriating myself. And through that, got a ton of great exposure, kind of seeing how the rest of the world operates, really understanding a little bit more, how business works internationally, and sort of learn my trade on the facility side of how to go in from the ground floor, hire people, set up equipment, work with customers, and then deliver. So, very, very fortunate to have had that opportunity. And that opportunity carried on. I ended up doing the same thing down in South America, in Colombia, and then eventually coming back and working as part of the executive team with our head office back in Nisku. From there, that kind of led into the human resources and health and safety, and here I am.
I see a bit of a world traveler.
Yeah, it was got a fair bit of air miles, so hit status quite a few times for Air Canada. I can't complain.
Yeah, I guess that'd be quite the benefit to start kind of at the ground level, and you kind of get to see a business grow through all the different stages. So that's definitely a very unique experience that I think is probably part of your success. So
very fortunate. I can't thank my previous employer enough.
Yeah, that's great to hear there. So Ian, did you want to kind of talk about your greatest achievement?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, it probably has to be this business that's in, ongoing and in its very early stages. Just probably because just the amount that went into it, and the amount of learning as well. So of course, for me, this is I was looking at an amount of money that I had to figure out how to get that, at least on my personal life, I'd never dealt with before. So, asking James to take a pretty large leap of faith in, in his own abilities, but, to an extent mine as well. And then, trying to arrange all of those pieces. Also, say the due diligence side, the amount that I had to research and learn and figure out, and, a ton of risk at the same time. So it was and it all worked out in the end. So, or at least the deal closed. So, just the, it was great to go through that and, tick it off as a success, right? So far.
Yeah, I remember that whole process. You talked with me about it there, and I was like, oh man, that seems like such a headache. Just the amount of paperwork and the amount of information you had to gather, and I think for a lot of people who are who want to start a business, not so much from, bootstrapping it or whatever with $0 or a little bit of money, but people that want to go and they're like, I'm going to buy a business, and they go look at a business and they look at the amount of effort it requires to actually come up with the proper credentials and like some due diligence paperwork, just to meet all the obligations they need. I think a lot of them just give up, right? But Ian stuck through it there, and yeah, and I think he was a little bit odd in the case that he was always excited about the whole process, right? Where a lot of people would just be there complaining. He's like, "Oh, you won't believe it! What I got done today!" Right?
You won't believe how many problems I uncovered today.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's all I can say is, if you want to be successful with this, you need to find yourself an Ian and find somebody who's truly engaged and finds that exciting.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah, and I think I know you had mentioned that you're going to ask us for some advice later for your listeners, but just a thought right now is, it's going to be a lot of work. So, and you have to do what it takes. So, I mean, make no mistake, I had no money to my name. So it's, that's another piece of the puzzle you have to figure out. And you just gotta You just have to believe it and slowly grind towards figuring it out. And you have to work hard. So I mean, well, I worked 3 jobs. If you kind of count the work I was putting into that, totaling about 18 to 20 hours a day for a good year straight, a year and a half. Yeah.
And somehow you kept on pushing through. I remember seeing it and going, "How's that guy awake right now?"
Exactly.
Copious amount of coffee.
Yeah,
that would be those 3 a.m. starts that you're referring to there.
yeah, exactly. Well, man, those are some great achievements, and I think definitely inspiration for the listeners here. So, I guess we're going to move on to the next part of the show, where we're going to get into the marketing side, right? That's what the show is about, the actual marketing show. What's actually kind of working for you guys and what's not, right? So many business leaders don't often consider themselves marketers, right? Some do, some don't, but many don't consider themselves marketers. And the thing is that if you're making sales, you're bringing in customers, you are marketing, right? There's everybody does it a little bit differently, right? And you can get the sales department and the marketing department, and a lot of times they'll do the same thing, except one's doing it with kind of advertising or messaging, and then the sales department's dealing with the customers one-on-one. And so I think this is where we kind of, talk to you to figure out how it works for you, because it's going to be different for everybody. And this is what the show's about, is to bring all these different things that are working. And maybe the listeners, somebody's listening here, might find something. They're like, hey, you know what, that might work for me. So we'll be getting into what's working for you and also what's not working for you. So if you tried something that didn't work, don't be afraid to share it, because that can be a learning experience for everybody as well. So let's start with, what does your business do to market itself? I know it's kind of a broad question, but just kind of a general overview. How do you guys get out there and find more customers and clients?
Well, James is more boots on the ground. So why don't you cover this?
Sure. So it's actually quite interesting. Again, with purchasing a company that's already been in existence, you inherit some of the marketing strategies and sort of the methodology that was in there before. So the company already had an established website that was getting some traffic. We get inquiries through it and direct questions, and that's continued to work quite well. We're currently in the process of revamping it to increase the engagement. Because engagement really seems to be something that's working well for us and something we've kind of leaned towards. So now we've branched out into having more interactions through Google Business, people leaving reviews, putting some more information there so people can see a bit more about us, and we pop up a little bit more with relevance in searches, getting into Instagram, just starting to follow and kind of engage with other businesses in the area as well, establishing those relationships. But the biggest thing is really just finding other businesses that we've already aligned with, and just face-to-face getting ourselves in front of people, really through the focus on our customer service and the reputation that we've built. That's kind of been a word of mouth approach that's spread out. And we get quite a few customers coming to us just because, somebody's mentioned, if they see that there's a need, our name pops up and we get pulled into that. So, that's really kind of more the things that I've seen and focused on, as Ian alluded to, kind of that boots on the ground. Just getting out there and just being active in the community is really being key.
Yeah, we place a big emphasis on the Google reviews you mentioned. And I think more than that, we share every one of them internally. So I think that, builds that pride. And I think your customers, to result in that word of mouth that we get so much of, they sense that when they come in. They see that everybody's proud to be a part of this company. And so I think sharing that stuff with your staff is a big part of, ultimately the marketing strategy too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess employees can be a great way of bringing in more customers if they're willing to go out and talk with their family and friends about this great company they work at, right?
Yeah.
So, there'll be some employees that can work somewhere and maybe they just go there because it's a job, but they're not really proud of the company. They just need to work, and they're not going to go out and share what their company does if they don't feel that pride. So no, I think that's uh, a great strategy there to share the good news with the employees.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about aligning yourself a little bit with other companies. Is that if you want to just kind of dive deeper a little bit into there, is that like you'll go out and say, hey, we would love to have that company as a customer, or are you saying they were already customers and you're just maybe trying to increase business with them?
It's been a little bit of both. I mean, we have some customers that through location have quite a bit of reach. Example B, we service the local airport here in Edmonton. And through that, I mean, you have a large cluster of rather big companies, all in a small area, you know, and just by the nature of how airports work and operations management, you kind of get in there, your bottles are in place, your trucks are showing up, your employees are there. So you have sort of a presence, right? And by being approachable and, you know, being very much kind of out there trying to solve issues for people, we found that spread quite a bit. And that kind of leads a little bit, and Ian can surely speak to this quite a bit because he's very passionate about these things. But you start looking at other customers in that area that you want to approach, that you know that you can be very successful with and kind of be a distinguished partner to help them with their needs.
Yeah, I think a good example of that though is you know, where you talk about solving the customers problems. James actually launched a whole new product line that ended up being really successful, just based on one of the new customers that we acquired, and just the entire product line. The genesis of it was, how do we, you know, make this process better to fit with their needs, not like their manufacturing process, and not necessarily just what worked for us.
Mm-hmm.
Or how, you know, we can save money or save time or get it to them easier. It was all about how do we get it to them in a form that's better for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it comes down to that, you know, being very much, you know, I hate to keep saying it, but boots on the ground. You know, seeing what's happening on the delivery, you know, being there to interface with the decision makers on site, you get a bit of an insight into what they're using your product for and how it's affecting their production, as Ian said. You know, and coming from a production background myself, you know, that's kind of where a product line launched from, was going, hey, let's do this. It's going to be better for us because we can service you better and do it more efficiently and at a better cost. And also you're going to see a return on that as well by partnering with us, because our solution allows you to achieve more volume. So it's worked out quite well. And again, then that dovetails out to, they speak well of us, you know, then we have that reputation of being problem solvers, and, you know, it gets us in front of more people again.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point. Like, no matter how big you become, and we're not like super large, so it's not hard for us right now. But you know, you can probably attest, even when you're working for a much larger company, that you know, you can't, as an owner or you know, director, executive level, you can't get disconnected from you know, your shop or your customers. So getting out to them, and not just the big ones, right? And you know. No matter how big we get, I think we'll always spend a day on the production line, you know, at least a few times a year, right? So I think that's important to really understand it.
You know, I like to hear that. And you kind of mentioned, you know, getting insights by having boots on the ground, right? You know, that's something that I think some people that are striving to see success probably just aren't realizing that you have to understand what the customer what the customer needs, and so by going there and having that intention to look out for that, to look for those insights of, you know, what they need to solve, the kind of their pain points, you could say. You know, that is kind of a key to success, and if you can deliver the results that they need, it makes gaining new customers a lot easier.
Yeah, and as entrepreneurs, we wear so many different hats. It's sometimes easy to, you know, lose sight of, you know, or maybe identify what it is that's important to the customer. I think that's where, like, experts like yourself come in, where you specialize in, you know, how to present to a particular, market segment, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of always the first thing if I'm going to work with somebody is doing research on a target market, right? Diving deep to find the insights. So yeah, so that's always the first thing, and it's just good to hear that that's kind of a key to your success. It validates that knowing your customer is really important. What have you seen to be the most effective marketing for you? So we kind of talked about the general kind of how it's working for you, but is there like a specific marketing strategy or tactic or something you constantly said, you know what, let's try this. Let's see if this gets us results that you found to be effective?
I think Ian's giving me that look to lead into this question a bit. Yeah. So it's been a bit interesting because we haven't maybe gotten to the point where we've had a real stop and say, okay, what is a strategy for the year? But kind of to your comment, we've played around with a couple of different things. One of the ones that we did was starting to do boosted posts on Facebook. Just because, especially in the Leduc area, there's a very active community. It's a Leduc rant and rave, which is exactly what it sounds like. People rant about things they're displeased about and rave about things that they love. But there's a very active group on Facebook in that region. So we started going, okay, well, here's maybe a product that you wouldn't immediately associate with us. It says in the name water and ice, so people think of our store only as having those two things. But we have coffee and we have local meats and things like that. So to use the example, we boosted a post talking about coffee, and it was a company that was in the local area that we really believed in, has excellent product, and customers have reacted to it. So we started seeing more engagement that way. So we haven't gone a ton into that, but that's sort of the first kind of glimmer going, hey, there's getting this out there and drawing some more attention to it is definitely working and gets people interested. And then, you get phone calls to follow up saying, oh, is this true? Do you have this in your store?
Yeah, I think that's the same thing kind of discussing before. It's about listening to the customers. So we look at this Leduc rant and rave. We see what it is maybe they're saying about us, good or bad. Continue the good, see what we can do about the bad, or the competition, and maybe we see that we actually excel in this area, and so we really put that at the forefront. A good example would be actually when we were looking into purchasing this business, we of course read the Google reviews. There weren't a lot, so that's been a big focus of us, is getting more reviews, but there was only one bad one. Of maybe 10 or 15 reviews, there was one bad one, and it said that they were disappointed that the vending machine that we have a dispensing machine for after hours when we're not open, did not accept credit card. One of the very first orders of business was to get a brand new vending machine, solve some other problems too, but we decided to, get a modernized system with, accepts all types of payments. We did a double wide system. It's been giving us some headaches, but it should, once it's all the kinks are worked out, it's going to actually, we spent that money because, that's what we saw as the feedback, right? The difficulty is we can't necessarily tie something like that to the number of new customers, but I think we know and we believe that it's the right thing and it's going to matter.
Well, I could speak to that actually. That just the vending machine thing. I mean, a lot of times on review sites, somebody's going to come on and say something, and if you look at it and you say, you know what, that could be a problem for a lot of other people. They're just the first ones that said it. And at my I work in the city there, and in our lunchroom there's a vending machine. When I first started working there, it was just coins or bills, right? And the lady would come in twice a week to stock it up, and there'd be some days she'd come in, she didn't have to stick nothing in it.
Yeah.
Right? It was, people just don't carry the cash. Well, they decided to upgrade. They stuck in a payment system, using debit, credit, whatever. That thing's almost empty now. Every time she comes in twice a week, that thing's almost empty. And when the machine loses its signal or whatever, and it says cash only because it's not working. Oh, you see the lunchroom, everybody's like, oh, I didn't bring a lunch today. I needed that, because people come to rely on it, right? So yeah, I think that's a smart move, to take that feedback, even if it was a bad review, to say, well, let's make a change here. That bad review could end up gaining you a lot more customers and positive reviews, right? So,
well, that's right, and I think it's I think a lot of people have a tendency to focus on for themselves the good reviews and what they do good, and maybe dismiss the bad ones a little bit. But I think what you really have to do is take a little more notice to the bad ones, and see if there's anything you can do about it, and if so, do it, and if not, so be it. Mitigate as best you can, right? As a marketing expert, you probably know this way better than me, but I had heard through my business training a figure something like, one complaint represents something like 10,000 others who, I mean, obviously for big companies, who feel the same way. So, it's something that we look at very closely.
Well, yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable, because, if you look at any review site, and, it used to be that when people complained about I guess it depends what it is, right? But look on Amazon products. If you were to go there and look at all the reviews, you'll see if the product does have a problem, there's going to be at the very top, it's just going to be a lot of bad reviews, right? But if a product is good, it's going to be a lot of good reviews. The bad reviews in those cases, though, you go and read them, sometimes it's like the people just didn't understand what they were buying. Right? Mm-hmm. There's so many good reviews. So many people loved it. And then you go look at and the good reviews are, well, it's praise for the product, praise for the book, or praise for the product. But the bad reviews, it's just like, they just didn't understand what they were buying almost, right? And it's I think it's become a bit more common now that a lot of times people don't even want to leave a bad review anymore. It's like they just, if it's a bad, if the product causes them problems, they just return it and they move on. It seems to be that more people are starting to, they'd rather, I think the culture's changed a little bit around reviews, just from my own research into the matter. The culture's kind of changing, where, it used to be a big thing to just smash a product, online, and now it's becoming more of almost like there's just these, they call them trolls, right? People just want to go out there and troll the review sites, and they're just having a bad day or something. But unless your product really is bad,
so I guess I was just going to say, so I guess those if the product is good and you and it's not, and it's a genuine bad review, then it's like I think you're saying it's like a matter of kind of a misaligned expectation, right?
Yeah, a lot of times it's going to be like, my product took 2 days or 2 days more than you said to get here. Well, it doesn't mean the product's bad. It just means the shipping was slow, right? Or they'll buy it, and this didn't work for my iPhone 6, but it was an iPhone 8 case or something. They obviously just, but they still leave a bad review. So sometimes just misalignment with. I had a friend that he sold trading cards, right? He was doing pretty good with it as well, pulling pretty good money with it. And he would get people that would send him a bad review and say, "This isn't the card I ordered." And he looks at that and he's like, "That is the card you ordered. I don't." But they leave him a bad review, right? So they obviously just didn't read the description really well or something. So
yeah, exactly. And I think even that stuff, it's really important. If you're going to take true ownership of it, you still take those to heart and try not to dismiss them. So that's something that we do. Is no matter what that review is, we look at it and say, okay, could we have communicated this better? Is there a better sign we can put up? Is there a better message? Can we train our staff to acknowledge something a little bit better? And in most cases, we find there is something we can do to take ownership of it.
Exactly. And a large part of that too is, as you said, was it's expectation settings, clear communication from the get-go of what the service is going to be, what we will do, what, maybe doesn't fall within our purview to do, but we can acknowledge, really sets tone and engages that conversation so that you get feedback You know, a lot of times, even if there is an opportunity where something was missed, you know, that feedback isn't necessarily a negative review. It's something that you can follow up on a little bit more closely and address quicker as well.
I guess looking at negative reviews as kind of an opportunity, right? To say, how can we make this better? So that's good. That's some good good knowledge, good tips for the listeners.
Yeah.
So okay, we're gonna go on to the sadder side of the show here. What if you tried that just didn't work? You know, you said this is gonna work. You put this plan in place, and it utterly just failed.
I can speak a little bit to that. James has done a lot of the kind of implementing of new stuff, the direction to go with any kind of marketing or how to present to the business. I did the axing of previous you know, incentives or strategies. So I think you know, it's not necessarily you know, brutal failures, but they're things that we decided. There may be legacy you know, forms of marketing or advertising that we continued, you know, in hopes that they would be good, but we found that they weren't. So print media is the big one. So we did some of that. We did some, you know, paper advertisements and that. And I think we kind of found that it wasn't the medium that is getting in front of the most people. And plus the lack of analytics, we can't see to what extent it's benefiting us. When we canceled it after spending a ton of money, we, you know, we didn't see a drop in sales or anything, right? So print media was one we ended up axing. The other one would be, there was kind of a unique service that would offer newcomers to the town, like a new, people who just moved here, a basket of free things and different offers from local businesses. And so we participated in that, and it was fairly expensive as well. And we were able to track that a little bit because we would see how many, you know, new customers, ones we haven't seen before, came in with the, what it was a free bottle of water, right? And it just wasn't, you know, there just wasn't a good return on that. In fact, we lost a ton of money on that. But I think that's part of it, right? You have to try these things. You have to, in our case, continue these things, and you know, they may flop, and there's going to be many more.
Yeah, they always have a saying. It's called beat the control, right? So you try things until something's working, and then once it's working, you try to beat that, right? That becomes the control. That's kind of a copywriter thing.
Oh yeah, interesting. Right? I like it.
If you have some coffee that's pulling in, the goal is to beat it.
Yeah.
Although there's a saying I heard, and I like it. It's the more successful you become, the more you move away from the things that made you successful in the first place. And that's I've heard that in the context of sales and marketing before as well.
Yeah, I guess, you know, you kind of forget what got you there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, since you started, you know, your you bought the business, and you've tried out some different marketing tactics. Some worked, some didn't. What's something that from this whole process that you've learned that you think will help you continue succeeding?
Well, I think one of the big things that we learned is kind of going from passive marketing. So, you know, things that we're running in print media and that it's just out there. You know, as Ian had mentioned quite rightfully, you don't necessarily have good analytics to see it back, to jumping into a much more dynamic marketing strategy, you know, with Facebook and being online on any of the social media platforms. Adapting to it's a big time commitment, and you have to have a level of engagement and willingness to engage with your customers and answer questions and stand behind the product. Something that we went into a little bit cautiously, and, you know, just based on the positivity is coming back, and, you know, sometimes the feedback of things to improve, which a lot of times is, as you said before, more important because that's how you get better at what you do. You know, that turned into something where we're like, hey, let's just launch this and see how it goes. And now it could be a full-time job, you know, fully understand the value now of having a marketing specialist and somebody who can work that strategy. You know, if you asked me myself a year ago, I would say, oh yeah, no problem. I can run the Instagram. I can do this and that and everything else. And, you know, it becomes quite a bit, but it is exciting as well because you have that direct connection to the customer.
Well, yeah. And, you know, like, there's kind of different types of marketers, I guess, out there, marketing specialists, but, the one I'm privy to is direct response, right? It's all trackable. So, you know, you get the big companies like, you know, say the Super Bowl, right? Super Bowl commercials. They go spend millions of dollars on a big ad at the Super Bowl. And they have no way to track how many of those people are actually becoming customers or increasing their spend with, say, you know, Coke or Budweiser, right? I mean, they know that it does get response, but how much of it is, right? And the best they can do is just see what happened before the ad in terms of revenue and see what happened after. And that's as close as they can get to it. And they have no way to know for sure that was an increase because of the ad. You know, direct response it's all trackable, right? You have every way you're going to have some way to say, I got results from this particular campaign. You know, either it's tracking with analytics online, or it's a special code that is given to the customer to use for a small discount, just to say if they use that code, they saw the ad, right? So, yeah, and so that's, I guess, the two different sides of it, right? It's almost like broad-based branding versus direct response. So, okay. Ian, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Nope. I think that covers it.
Cool. Okay, so I just have a few more questions here, and then we'll end the show. So, what's frustrating you the most today in regards to growing your business?
I'll speak to that first here a little bit. For me, it's limited resources. So I think this ties in nicely to actually what you were just talking about, the companies, the big companies that advertise at the Super Bowl. You know, they have the ability to, you know, come up with big marketing budgets, and that's going to be a piece of it, but they're doing many different things, and they obviously hope that it is going to result in a lift in sales, but you know, they're able to just spend that money to an extent blindly. I think what's frustrating as a smaller company trying to grow is, you know, you don't have that budget. You've got to really nitpick what you put the money towards this year, and you know, so that direct response becomes super important for us because we need to develop those benchmarks. And what was your saying? Beat the copy, or beat the
control?
Yeah, no, beat the control. So we, you know, that's really important for us because we have to establish those controls. And you know, so it'd be great to hire a marketing manager or you know, an account manager who can take care of existing customers, and then, you know, be dedicated to going out and finding new ones as well. But you know, as a small company, that would be that the return on that wouldn't be as high as some other options, but it'd be a great thing to have all around, right?
Mm-hmm. How about for yourself, James? Do you have any frustrations you'd like to add to this conversation?
Yeah, no, it very much mirrors what Ian was saying. It is just finding the resources, and I see it as kind of closing the gap. I mean, you see a marketing strategy that you'd really like to implement, but at the smaller size, you go, it's a big leap of faith, right? Mm-hmm. To jump and spend that money. You know, in the hope that it drives back more business and gets more people talking about you. But that lag time from the investment to getting to that point, you know, can maybe not frustrate you, but can cause a little trepidation about approaching it. So then it's kind of finding those incremental steps to get to that point, and, you know, building that brand and building that recognition and everything else. And that's actually, you know, as an aside, that's something that we went through last year, was a little bit of a rebranding updating the logos and sort of the look and the colors of the company so that we had something that unified and kind of presented, so now we've got these wonderful new kind of templates and everything else. And now it's like, okay, just find us a little bit more cash, and get out there and get in front of people a bit more. Right.
Well, I think you're having your logo and your company name on your products in areas that are in areas that are public spaces, right? That it kind of hits the first point of the customer journey, right? The know. They know about you. They know you're out there. They know who you are. There was a quick little thing here. That there's he's a famous copywriter named Dan Kennedy. This guy is one of the greats, right? And he's written a lot of books. Actually has a whole community based around his marketing methods. But in one of his books, he had this example of say a plumber, and the plumber would just drive around a community. Even if he didn't have work out there, he'd just drive around the community with his van with this big logo on his side. And the whole purpose of it is that when somebody did have a leak, they'd say, well, I seen that guy in the area. Let's give him a call. Now, I mean, that's the no. And the guy actually saw an increase in calls from those areas. He tracked it, right? He said, he tracked it and said, okay, well, let's see if I start getting calls from these areas I've never been before. And he started to get them. And I mean, that's a very simple tactic, but it's just, it had awareness. People became aware that he existed, and that's the no. And it seems like you guys I think a lot of people in Leduc would say, oh, I know where the Water and Ice Company is, right? It's on a main strip in Leduc. Like, people are going to know who you are. But now you need to go into that whole, the like and the trust, right? They gotta like you, they gotta trust you. And that's where the engagement comes in. And I really like the idea that, going on the rant and rave group and stuff, that's great. Just so people start to like you and eventually trust you.
Well, it's very hard to hear.
It's a big part of it for us is being top of mind where and when that somebody's going to, need the problem solved that you solve, right? So, it's almost, in my mind, less important to have your phone number on, say, the delivery trucks, but to have your logo and just be a recognizable name so that, because it's so easy to access information nowadays, you just go online and as long as you just remember the name of the company.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a nice thing with just by the very nature of the business. I mean, we have those vehicles running around every corner of the city, north and south, pretty much to the tip and bottom of the province. So that's, it's nice to hear that strategy worked for the plumber, and hopefully that reflects the same for us as well.
I'd actually recommended that to a guy on this business group on Facebook. He said, I'm a roofer and I don't know how to get clients. And I said, well, I gave him the same example with the plumber. Like, well, why don't you drive around with your work van with your logo on the side, and then once you've done that a few times, send people in those neighborhoods, while you're doing it, scout out roofs that look bad, right? Go look at the roof, say, oh, that looks like a bad roof. That looks like a bad roof. Take the address, send the people a message in the mail. They obviously know about their roof, right? For a free estimate or a free roof inspection. And then once he was in the door, he could work on the pitch, right? I'll fix your roof. He loved that. He said, hey, that was a great idea. So I don't know if he ever did it or not, but I thought it was a good idea.
The business I had in school was window cleaning. So what we would do is we would, of course, have some sort of branding on the vehicle, but we would put signs out at the end of the driveway, at least while we're working on the site, and we'd ask the customer if we can leave them there longer. And then we had a rule: you would have to walk 3 houses down, knocking on each door, cross the street, walk back, 3 houses the other direction, cross back, and then before you start the job, or at least one of the crew members would do that, offering a free estimate. And many times you could find one more job. It was a faster job, a roofing a little bit different, but we would find another job we could throw in on the spot, right?
Yeah, save you some travel money there, right? Because you're already there.
We give them the discount on the setup time, and if they did it right there and then, yeah.
Nice, that's great.
Well, and another thing that we found is worked quite well. So going back when we did the change in the company logo and colors, we very deliberately picked a color palette that is non-standard for the industry. When people think of water, you know, some of the bigger players that won't mention by name, but blue.
Yeah.
Water companies are always blue. Service person's always wearing blue. Doesn't necessarily reflect our shirts. They're just meant to be more comfortable in the logo. But our bottles, we went with a teal, like a brightish green that really pops. So
Yeah.
we've actually found people commenting, like at the local airport, people can see the bottle a mile away if it's sitting on the cooler. And they come back and they say, hey, I saw your bottle the other day, right? Just because it's so different than what anybody else has done. And that kind of, again, just pushes that kind of people thinking about you. And you're just, you know, as you said before, just awareness of what we're doing.
Right? Yeah, it's a way to differentiate yourself, right? And that's always a big thing, especially in any industry that's like very big and common, right? Like the water industry. I mean, everybody needs to drink water. There's lots of water companies out there. You have to have some way to be different, right? So yeah, that's great. I like that. It's a simple idea, and it just gets people to see your bottle compared to all the other bottles that are just blue, and they probably all blend together, right?
Well, then that's just it. And what the other thing too is it's a conscientious choice to evoke that emotion. So, you know, the color and the logo and sort of everything that we're gearing towards, and we're redesigning the website, you know, and it should be going hopefully actually live not long after this airs. I'm not sure when you're planning on airing this, but maybe it'll be a happy coincidence. But you know, we want to be a fresh company, a company that seems, you know, modern as we're modernizing, and we're doing more to service our customers better, and we're making it easier to order water and find out information and solve those problems. So we want everything to align with that. And you go, this company, you know, is very much, you know, keeping pace with what the expectations are and what people expect of businesses now. You know, and not seem stodgy in sort of a commodity-based market, which is very much what this is. You know, as you said, there's a lot of people providing these services. So what differentiates us, right? And we want that presence to reflect our values and how we see ourselves. And we see ourselves as very agile and, you know, very customer-driven.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and so you just get that message out there somehow, and people see that, definitely make you stand out, right? Now here's a fun question, and I saved this for near the end. You know, so every entrepreneur, I guess when they're starting out, they have this dream vision, right, of what's life going to be like when I'm successful 5-10 years from now? Am I going to be, you know, living the dream, not working so hard? Or am I going to, maybe their idea is to be hard in the business, working hard because it's what they love to do, you know? So I guess before you guys started out in each of your own entrepreneurial journeys, you know, James, yours might have been maybe a bit earlier than Ian's, or, you know, maybe the timeline so much up. So I guess give you each kind of a chance to tell your own story there. But, you know, before you started, what did you imagine yourself like, you know, 5-10 years from that point, maybe 2 years from that point, whatever it is? And how is that either the same or different today?
Sure, I'll kick us off on this one, I suppose. For me, you know, the dream, the vision is just to be a business owner, building something, creating jobs, right? I guess how I thought it would look in a couple of years, or just a couple of years in now, is that we would be having an impact and we'd be able to see that. And I guess, you know, a lot of things have gone wrong, you know, equipment breaking, stuff we didn't expect, but to an extent we did, because we kind of expected that there would be unexpected things happening, right? So as for, you know, how it compares or you know, where we are relative to where we thought we'd be, for me, it's, we're exactly where we thought we would be. We're expanding it. We have still that goal of opening new stores, opening new location. just actually recently, bought a building that we're going to move our factory to. So it's all kind of happening. It's just as much of a grind as we thought it would be.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's exciting. There, expanding. That's always great to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think very much what Ian said is, we kind of looked at it and, did expect the unexpected to happen. I'm fortunate enough to be older and, feeling the age a little bit, as Ian likes to give me a hard time every once in a while. He's the youthful side of the business, but, having gone through it before, you sit there at the precipice of a new business and kind of looking over the edge and going, what's it going to be like? Having gone through it, I knew that there would be struggles. I knew that there would be great successes, hitting milestones and things to celebrate and things to look back on and kind of go, well, I hope we don't ever have to go through that again. But the difference this time, being an owner, is seeing the influence that we have with the people that we choose to bring in, and and that focus that we really have on having a family style work environment, paying dividends. I knew through especially Ian's hard work on the hiring side, being very, very communicative to potential applicants of what we would expect for values and how we foresee the company growing, when we're at 4 full-time employees, to where we are now. I've never worked for a company that has this kind of atmosphere that we've built. We've had 0 truancies. We've had actually no absenteeism in a year and a half.
Wow.
That's the kind of work environment that I always dreamed would be there, where you would just know, like, you could count on the people that you're working with, that we all pull together. And we've had some very difficult days. As Ian said, equipment breaks and challenges are there, but to be surrounded with people that we've, had the honor of bringing in and, seeing them believe in the vision that we have and, rewarding that by working so hard and, just not having any issues in that sense. That was for me very unexpected, something I hoped for, but for us to be standing here, 16 months later, in achieving it, actually I should say 18 months later now. It's been exceptional.
Well, that sounds like you have a great work culture. I mean, no absenteeism. I haven't worked in a place where that wasn't a case. There's almost every day somebody's calling in, right? So, it's good. That says good things about your company. Ian, you had kind of touched on it. The advice for the advice for the listeners. Do you guys have any more advice you wanted to impart?
Sure. Yeah. There's kind of 2 things that I was thinking of. For me, I'm the finance guy, so a big piece of advice, and this is general, not marketing specific, but know your numbers. It's super important, and I think it's a big knowledge gap with a lot of entrepreneurs. They'll know what they do, the thing that they're building, or their service. They'll know it really well, but I think it's important to know your numbers. And I think if you ever want to scale a business, that's a big piece of it. And that applies to marketing too. If you're depending on your form of marketing, you need to know the numbers that need to go in to get the outputs you want, right? Otherwise, I think for me, the other thing I want to mention is I think replicability is very important. So we have spent a lot of time putting systems in place that can be used by anyone else in a moment's notice, that are very intuitive. And James, you used the term before, tribal knowledge. We're trying to get that out, and that has to do again with scalability. You can't do everything, and you can't teach everybody everything, so it's got to be replicable. Yeah.
That's great. To duplicate your success. Do you have anything you want to add, James?
Yeah, I think like Ian said, it's very much that. It's the ability to clearly communicate. I can't stress enough, for anybody who's starting out or looking for ways to grow their business is you need to be able to communicate your expectations. You need to be able to communicate how the job's done, which is the ability to scale and the ability to see your processes be applied and be easy to understand. But the other side of it too is that communication with your staff, build that trust. Don't hide, you know, the difficulties or things that are coming down the road. Involve your staff, involve them in the decision making, reach out to them, because, you know, everybody will say, oh yeah, no, the great ideas really come from the floor, but so few people do that. You know, they isolate themselves and they try and solve the problem. You know, but with everybody kind of pulling together and having that open communication, that trust, you know, everything gets a lot easier to solve, right? And investing that time early and, you know, working those late nights and putting in the hours will make your life a lot easier down the road. And you'll be able to offload some of that work, and you're going to have people take responsibility themselves to help grow your company. And again, that just, it reflects in everything that you do. Those people are going to be first point of contact for a lot of people that you might not get to see. And if they speak the same way that you would, you know, you've solved so many of your problems right there.
It's the alignment of values throughout the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's some great advice for everybody. Thank you. Well, I guess the show's coming to a close here. So, you know, the listeners, you've heard it here. Excellent advice from successful business owners, Ian and James. I guess, how can people reach out to you if they want to find out more about taking advantage of the services you offer?
Well, you can reach out to us any point in time. Look us up on the internet. We have a website, www.waterandiceco.com. We're on Facebook under the same name, Instagram. Call our shop directly at 780-986-9255. We'd love to hear from people. Yeah, pretty much if you can think of a communication platform, we're probably on there, probably waiting for your call and want to hear from you.
Or feel free to email at info@waterandiceco.com.
Okay, that's your guys' main email address. Okay, cool. You guys service both residential and businesses. And do you guys have an offer you'd like to give the listeners of the Actual Marketing Show?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are a first-time customer and you know, maybe you're the owner of a business, or you you know, you just work for a business and you want to get Water and Iceco delivering to your location. So for a new commercial customer, if you use the marketing code TAMS, standing for the Actual Marketing Show, we'll give you your first 5 bottles to your business for free.
That's great. I'm sure they'll love that. Thanks, Ian and James. Well, guys, that's the show today. And I'd like to thank you guys for coming on and doing this interview. This is episode 1. I guess I should have said that at the beginning. This is episode 1, the first episode of the Actual Marketing Show. So I'd just like to thank all the listeners today for listening to this episode of the Actual Marketing Show. Please help me spread the word and leave a review on whatever podcast or video platform you're listening to this show on. It is appreciated, and we'll get this valuable content out to those who need it most. And remember to subscribe to the show's channel and click the little bell if you're on YouTube. You're awesome, guys. Thanks for listening to the Actual Marketing Show. Cheers until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was excellent.
Hey, so thanks again for listening to this latest episode of the Actual Marketing Show. I just want to give a shout out to SRO, the artist, for our intro and outro music. Check out a link in the show notes. It'll take you to the track page and support that artist, please. Track name was Tokyo Nights. Make sure you connect with me on Facebook and LinkedIn, once again in the show notes or the comments of the platform you're listening to this episode on. Yeah, and just a shout out to me. I do got to promote myself, right? And I'm a copywriter and marketing consultant. If you want to know how to work with me, go to KylerCallahan.com, CYLERCALLAHAN.com. The link will also be in the show notes. And there's a video in the top, in the tab. Just click on my process and it'll take you to a video, and in that video I talk about how I work and the process of working with me. So thanks again for listening. Bye.